So, we are back for another Monday Fun Day grammar lesson, and this time we are talking about complex sentences. Alright, so this is just a little bit of an overview about compound complex sentences. The compound complex sentence combines elements of both compound and complex sentences. I bet you never would have guessed that based on the name compound complex sentence. It is the most sophisticated type of sentence that you can use, and understanding how to construct the compound complex sentence will help you take your writing to a new level of complexity. So one of my goals this year is getting you to be conscious of the type of sentences that you are using and trying to incorporate a variety of those in your writing to improve your sentence fluency. So if you know all four types of sentences and you can use them purposefully, you'll be a lot stronger writer. Alright, so just a little bit of a review. There are 4 types of sentences that we have talked about, and total, so you don't have to worry about more coming your way. This is it. Simple is 1 independent clause, remember. Compound is 2 independent clauses. Complex is 1 independent clause and 1 dependent clause, and compound complex we're going to get to in a minute here. So what is the formula for a compound complex sentence? A compound complex sentence is comprised of at least 2 independent clauses, just like a compound sentence is, and 1 or more dependent clauses, just like a complex sentence. So an example would be, Laura forgot her friend's birthday, so she sent her a card when she finally remembered. So you have Laura forgot her friend's birthday, 1 independent clause. You have comma and a fan voice conjunction. She sent her a card, 2nd independent clause. And when she finally remembered is the 1 dependent clause in this sentence. So 2 plus 1 equals compound complex. Okay, here's another example. Homecoming week is finally here. Yay! And all of the students are dressed up because they want to show their school spirit. So I have these labeled for you. Homecoming week is finally here is 1 independent clause. Then you have a comma and a fan voice conjunction. All of the students are dressed up. That's the 2nd independent clause. Because they want to show their school spirit is the dependent clause, which starts with the subordinating conjunction, which you memorized, because. Okay, so here is another compound complex sentence, just formatted a little bit differently if this makes more sense to you. Mike is popular because he is good looking, but he is not very happy. Okay, so you have Mike is popular is the first independent clause. You have subject and verb. And then because is the subordinating conjunction. He is good looking is the simple sentence that was complete until we put because before it to make it subordinate. And then you have but, a fan voice conjunction, and the last independent clause, he is not very happy. Okay, now this is really important. You have to remember how to punctuate in order to make it worth your while to use these 4 different types of sentences. And that's another goal of mine. By getting you to understand when you're using independent clauses and when you're using dependent clauses, hopefully you will then know how to purposefully punctuate each sentence so that it's grammatically and mechanically correct. Because compound complex sentences are normally longer than other sentences, it is very important to punctuate them correctly. Now the grandma poster, I don't know if you've seen that before or not. It's been circulating around on social media quite a bit, so you probably have. This is not an example of a compound complex sentence, but it is an example about how punctuation really is important. So it says, let's eat, Grandma. And then she's like, what? And then when you put the comma in there, let's eat, Grandma, instead of saying, the first one you're saying like, let's eat her, let's eat Grandma. And the second one you're saying, Grandma, I'm talking to you. Let's eat. So that little comma just saved your grandma's life. Okay, so some complex sentence rules. This is just a refresher, but you need to remember this. It's important. When the dependent clause is placed before the independent clause, the two clauses are divided by a comma. It's introductory material when the dependent clause is at the beginning of the sentence. Otherwise, no punctuation is necessary. Subordinating conjunction in the middle, leave the comma out for shizzle. I don't know if you remember that rap, but it's kind of hard to forget my singing, so you probably do. All right, now just a reminder, the relative pronoun which needs a comma before it because usually it starts in a positive, so it also would need a comma after the appositive. Okay, so some compound sentence rules just to review. Use a comma before a coordinating conjunction, also known as fanboys, when it is being used to combine two independent clauses. Use a semicolon before and a comma after a conjunctive adverb. That is not optional. You have to have that semicolon, adverb, comma. Otherwise, it is not going to be correct. Without the semicolon, it's a run-on. Use a semicolon by itself to separate two independent clauses if they're closely related in meaning. And finally, avoid comma splices and fused run-ons at all costs. Fragments too. We don't like those either. Unless you're being fancy and creative writing, emphasize creative writing, and you're using a crot or a blip. So, how to create a compound complex sentence. Here's an example, and we're breaking it down into steps in case you're confused about how to write one of your own. Step 1, begin with two independent clauses just by themselves, like the team captain jumped for joy, the fans cheered. Step 2, combine the two independent clauses to form a compound sentence. The team captain jumped for joy, comma, and the fans cheered. And then the third step, now add a dependent clause to your compound sentence to create a compound complex sentence. And that dependent clause can be added anywhere in the sentence that it makes sense. It can be added first, it can be added in the middle, or it could be added at the very end. So a couple different examples. The team captain jumped for joy and the fans cheered because we won the state championship. Or when we won the state championship, the team captain jumped for joy and the fans cheered. Yay! And here's my works cited. Alright, so that was pretty quick because really we covered all of the heavy terminology when we did simple and compound and complex sentences, and before when we talked about run-ons, comma splices, fused run-ons. So now we're just kind of taking it a step further, and the goal of this lesson is I want you to understand how to write a compound complex sentence as well as how to identify one, and we're going to work on that in class. So the phrase that pays for today's lesson is going to be